coaches, I feel like, are some of the most influential people in a young man or woman's life. I think that a lot of times we get lost in the wash in what our actual role is in these relationships. It's not your job to boss them around. It's your job to make them a better person, a better player, a better partner, a better everything, right? Very frequently we see bosses that, they got a promotion to a manager. Now they just kind of start acting like a dick. And that's just not the way that it should go. What's up, y'all? Cody Allen here, and this is the latest, the best, hopefully, episode of the Fill the Gap podcast. I'm your host. As always, this is usually a solo deal. Sometimes I bring my friends on. But I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. A sponsor for this podcast is Cutsclothing. Cutsclothing, I always wear one of their shirts in the podcast. You guys can clock me if I'm ever not wearing it. Cutsclothing is by far the best, we'll call it, for the sport of business clothes you can have. I got done in the gym this morning, immediately threw on my cut shirt, have meetings, doing podcasts, drop my dog off at the groomers. She looks kind of like I don't know. She's got a thing going on. Nonetheless, Cutsclothing is my everyday shirt. They also make the best joggers. They make great swim trunks. They make great golfing shorts. And they make clothes for men and women. So use my code, the Cody Allen. This is 100% authentic. You guys won't catch me wearing another brand. I love their stuff. Get a discount, support the brand, support me, and support this podcast. So today, as football season is kicking into gear, I am constantly reflecting on my time playing football and the different authority figures that I've seen throughout my time, and even being one. For those of you who don't know, I coached briefly during the 2020 condensed season that we had here in California, at least in my high school's league. And a couple of the guys that I had the pleasure of coaching with, and a lot of the guys I had pleasure of coaching, played last Friday. They kicked some high school team's ass, and it was really cool. I actually went to the game, and I got to watch them play. And they performed really well. And that is probably coaching is probably one of the most fruitful things I've done in a long time. But it got me thinking about the coach, the player, the person behind this uniform, this mask, this persona that we have to put on when we step onto the field. And it got me thinking about how there are so many people that step into the roles as coaches, and they put that coach hat on. They put that windbreaker on that every coach seems to have, that shirt that's too big and the sleeves seem to be too long. And sometimes that person changes. They change for the good. They change for the bad. And I guess the word to use is pretty unfortunate, because all too many times in our lives, we've seen people that are just seemingly good people. And this doesn't say that they aren't otherwise, but they seem like they're great people. They put on this coach hat, and they get this sense of entitlement. They get this sense of, you owe me respect. They get this sense of superiority in a lot of ways. And I think I've said it before, but definitely coaches, I feel like, are some of the most influential people in a young man or woman's life. Definitely I can talk about that in football as it correlates to being like a young man. Like, my high school football coach was extremely influential in the way that I prepared myself to be an adult today. A lot of what I attribute to just like my success in football, I attribute to Coach Ed Conroy. I actually got to see him before the game. He slimmed down a little bit. He's not the high school coach, the head coach at the high school anymore for varsity, but he's a D coordinator on JV now. And so he retired for a long time, obviously missed the game, came back, and found his love and passion for football again. But it's funny because I was sitting with my buddy, and we saw him, and I immediately walked right up to him because I haven't seen him since I played there. And it was, how have you been? You look great. I saw you doing this, saw you doing that. And it was immediately like he just treated me like I was another grown man, adult man that he was friends with, as I treated him, right? And it's funny because my buddy, who I was with, didn't even walk up to say hi to him. He had a vastly different experience with our old coach in regards to their relationship. which isn't good or bad, but it was just their experience and his experience. And it is interesting to see and hear like the different relationships or perspectives that people have when they go through athletics, when they have a job, when they have a relationship, when they have a friendship, because they quite often, everything's skewed to almost benefit them in a lot of ways. It's generally how it comes out. Nonetheless, I was able to talk to him for a brief moment, and it was just really good to see him happy and a man outside of the coach hat, right? All too frequently, I feel that we see people put on this coach hat. We see people put on this parent hat. See people put on this, boss, your boss hat, right? You know, the suit and tie, and now they're immediately better than you. You see people put on this what are they? I think there was dichotomy. Like when you get into a relationship, there's always a person that's got the upper hand, right? And some people thrive and enjoy this power, this sense of entitlement. And I think that a lot of times we get lost in the wash in what our actual role is in these relationships. When you become a coach, it is not your job to boss around somebody who's younger and sometimes even older than you, and talk about like the pros. It's not your job to boss them around. It's your job to make them a better person, a better player, a better partner, a better everything, right? Same thing when it comes to being a boss. And we've all dealt with shitty bosses. We've all maybe been a shitty boss or a good boss. It's not your job to tell people what to do, right? Obviously, you have the company's interests should align with your interests, should align with your employees' interests, and so on and so forth. And very frequently we see bosses that, they got a promotion to a manager. Now they just kind of start acting like a dick, you know? And that's just not the way that it should go. And that's not the role that you should play. And yes, there is a hierarchy. There is a way of thinking about you should have some authority, you know, in these specific roles. But respect goes so much further, and positive reinforcement goes so much further than this dictatorship, you know? There are people who have had success with it, but I would consider those outliers. I mean, there are studies that show that positive reinforcement is better, right? And then you talk about relationships, and there are people who are just good, well-mannered people when they are single, when they're individuals, when they're not having to work on this like power struggle with someone else, because I think what happens a lot of times is that people get into relationships and they immediately feel like they've become a little bit vulnerable, and they feel like they have to control the situation and manipulate the situation in their favor, so that they don't become susceptible to being hurt or something, or succumb to much risk, you know, succumbing to so much risk. And the reason why I bring this up is just because when your position changes in life, whether it's coach, relationship, marriage, friendship, whatever it is, I strongly advise that you not lose sight of who you are and what your actual job is in that position. You're a coach, you need to create a better young person, right? If you're in a relationship, you're there to better that person. You're not there to control that person. You're definitely not there to hold that person back. If you are a boss, you're going to get the most juice out of that squeeze is if you do it in a positive manner. And so I think that if it doesn't go that way, right? You have somebody who's manipulative, you have somebody who lies, you have somebody who just controls situations across all the boards and all those different categories we talked about. You leave a real negative effect as far from a perspective standpoint on that person that you coached, you were in a relationship, you were the boss of. And you have a lot of power. You wield a lot of power when you are in those roles. So I guess the point of this is just really look at what your role is in each situation prior to you just thinking that you have to be a certain way. And if you grew up a certain way, or you were in a situation where you had a coach that was shitty to you, right? He was just a dick. It was his way or the highway, that never listened to you, never this, in a relationship, whatever it is. you knew how you felt in that situation. And yeah, there's good and bad, but you have the experience. So go back, think about what could have done better, and try to play with that. Try to enact that. So I don't know. That's the main point of today's podcast. I'd love to get on it further, but your boy has a meeting in exactly 1 minute and 40 seconds. So today will be a short one. As you guys know, you guys can find me on my website or my Instagram handles. It's all the Cody Allen. Eventually someday I'll just start getting Cody Allen. But thecodyallen.com, handles are the Cody Allen. If you guys want me to talk about anything specific on this podcast, hit me. I'm open. The DMs are open. The comments are open. Let's put it out there. Let's just talk about things that are maybe more taboo. It doesn't really matter. I'm open to it. So again, you guys, Cuts Clothing, follow my YouTube, follow my Instagram, follow everything. You guys can see me wearing these clothes. You'll love them as much as I do. I guarantee it. Code the Cody Allen, men and women, grab some today. And now it's time to get on with the sport of business as I got meetings.